Station One people, it is time to go boldly where no one has gone before. Well, quite a few people have gone there before, but we are going to be talking about this third season of Picard has finally closed and closing a chapter to the next gen. It's going to be very interesting to talk about, and we got a great crew to talk all about it tonight. Of course, we have Keith Johnson, we have Veronica, and of course, we have Chuck from Earth Station Trek joining us. We're talking about Star Trek, of course. Here, you know.
Yay!
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Like the changelings, they just invaded our station.
Exactly.
Right.
They came disguised as other people and they pulled off them. It was awesome. It's the Trek people. Ah, okay. So it's pretty awesome.
At some point, I might turn into Alan.
That I'd pay to see. I would pay to see that. I would pay to see that. And of course, Mr. Mike Gordon is here.
Howdy.
You ready
It is
for
me.
some Star Trek?
100% me, unfortunately.
Yes, it is. It is him. Can't say anything else. It's him. It's a good thing. So it's going to be awesome. We are going to spoil the hell out of this one, folks. So if you are not caught up with the season, if you haven't finished it, put us on pause. Watch it because it is worth it, folks.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much fun. And I don't want to say anything yet because we got a lot of discussion ahead of us tonight. So please, spoilers, watch, repeat. It's awesome. You know, we'll definitely be ready for it. So definitely, Mr. Mike, take us away.
Yeah,
Make it so.
And to add to that, not only are we going to have spoilers for the season 3 of Picard, but the other 2 previous seasons and probably all of Star Trek. So just know that going in.
If you've never watched Next Generation, you know, forget it.
This one,
or Deep Space Nine, or Voyager.
Absolutely.
I said all of Star Trek, so spoilers for the last 50 some odd years.
Exactly. That's not too much to ask, right?
Never.
Well, so many of it, you know, is regurgitated in this season. So if you don't know, you don't know, right? So anyway.
And you don't know, you don't know.
So let's get right to it.
Who knew?
What was your Keith, we'll start with you. What was your overall feelings, thoughts about season 3 of Picard? And which I think is the final season, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think that I really disliked the first 2 seasons of Picard. The first one was barely held my interest. The second season, honestly, sorry guys, that was me. I honestly call the second season horrible. I truly, truly disliked it. And I had a lot of issues with the plot. I had a lot of issues with Guinan and so forth. This one was good. A lot of people don't like all the fan service it had, but I thought the plot was better. It moved faster. The characters felt more natural. Bringing Riker in and making Beverly a focus. It felt like Next Generation. There's nothing wrong with that. I think one of our participants on our podcast made a good point, which was Picard season 3 felt more like a Star Trek movie than perhaps a Star Trek season, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I enjoyed it, and even some of the major plot holes, I could overlook them because I was having fun. I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually started watching it again with my wife just yesterday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, rewatching already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Chuck, what about you?
I loved it. I mean, I've got my criticisms because it's Star Trek, and I always have my criticisms. But I mean, I think the characterizations are what matter here, and I think they did an incredible job and incredible justice to the characters and to the actors over the course of this season. Now, the overall story is not what I would prefer for a Star Trek story. I would have preferred something that was a little Star Trekier and a little less, you know, big evil villain in a big evil chair with a big evil gun. But I mean, I think it's enjoyable throughout. I had a great time. And as far as the serialized new Star Trek series have gone since 2017, I think it's one of the strongest serialized seasons they've done.
Yeah.
And you're nodding, Veronica?
Yeah. I agree that it's very much serialized. But I agree that it's probably one of the best serialized Star Treks that they've done. I really miss the episodic, which is hilarious because DS9 is my favorite. but it was episodic with a thin line of serialization throughout, which is what I really like. But I really loved all the fan service, and they did it really well, not in a way that's like fan service in your face. And it was like, why did you do that? You just did that for fan service.
Sometimes
it was a little bit that. But it was well done shoving fan service down your throat. So I really enjoyed it a lot. It was fun. They would make light in serious moments instead of spend 10 minutes having a serious discussion in serious moments.
Mike?
I have to agree with, what the Trek people have to say because they're the experts, of course. But, I do agree that the first 2 seasons of Picard were okay. They weren't great, but they were entertaining. I liked Patrick Stewart in it. Season 2, I thought was a train wreck. Yeah. And I kept on wanting it to be so much better. And it felt like they kept on just throwing things against the wall to see what would stick. And, they're in the past, boom. Who could they run into? Boom, and it was real interesting that when they announced that a lot of the original cast for the TNG was coming back for the final season. And I was like, how are they going to do this? What are they going to do with it? And, and then I was like going, all right, which one of the Soons is Dana going to play? That Brent Spiner's going to play next. And so
all of them.
Exactly. And it was interesting. Did I enjoy season 3? Loved it. It was fan service out the yin yang. Yeah. But I loved every second they gave me. Yeah. So, I have criticisms with it, but overall, when I stopped watching it on last Thursday night after it aired, I was grinning ear to ear, like, oh, wow. Yeah. So, and I was like, I can't wait to talk about it with my podcast friends. That was even more so.
That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, of course.
For me, going into season 1 of Picard, I didn't care for it that much. But what got me through it was Patrick Stewart playing Picard, because I just love that character. I love his performance of that character. It's, I'll watch him read the phone book, like that's, and so I didn't care for the writing. I didn't care for a lot of the other things. I do like 7 of 9, so I liked her appearance of that. Some of the use of the Borg in that one was pretty interesting. Some of the other new characters were pretty fun as well. Michelle Hurd's character, damn it, escaped me, but her name, but
Raffi.
Raffi, thank you. I like her as well. But so the characters were cool. I didn't really care about I couldn't even tell you what the plot is right now because I just don't recall it. And I was really not happy with the way things were in that universe, like how much time had passed and what had happened. All of our other characters that we knew were broken. I didn't care for that. So season 2 came along and it was much the same, really. I enjoyed the acting performances. Patrick Stewart again, Jerry Ryan, Michelle Hurd, Alison Pill. They were all great. But the story made no sense. And I still left my head. I mean, at the end of it, I scratched my head like I don't know what I just saw.
I don't think they did because they basically retconned the entire thing in season 3.
Yeah, I mean, now it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, everything that season 2 did, like Picard is just erased. So yes. It's like the people who wrote this season have never seen a season of Picard before.
Which is fine.
Which is funny is a lot of them were writers for season 2.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same writers and producers.
You know what? As far as season 3 goes, it's more of the same for me, but it's just multiplied. Like, I like all the characters. I like all the actors. getting everybody back together, seeing the Enterprise D again, which is never my favorite, but still, I mean, it's in wrestling terms, it's an easy pop, right? Like it's a quick pop. All you have to do is like show me it, and I'm like, woohoo! Like all you have to do is show me the original Enterprise, and I'm like excited. But as far as like the plot and the story, I mean, it seems like whereas in the other two seasons that they were just throwing things against the wall and see what sticks. In this season, it seemed like they just took like a bunch of elements from all sorts of Star Trek stories and just threw them against the wall. And they didn't really make a lot of sense, and they weren't connected very well, and it was really painful to watch that. But again, when I see Riker and Picard, and not just Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart on screen, but Riker and Picard like hanging out and talk and having a scene together, Riker and Worf, which is one of my favorite combinations, which I don't think was ever really used to its potential in the series. Right. I love that. And going forward, I where this goes, let me just say this. My one hope when I found out they were going to do a final season of Picard, my one hope was like, I hope no matter what happens with Picard, that by the end, we are introduced to a new crew of a new Enterprise, and we can take this franchise forward. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that it wasn't until the last 10 minutes that I thought that was going to happen. But the last 10 minutes, they made that happen, and I'm very excited for whatever comes next. If they do, give the green light to a new Enterprise series, captained by Seven, that would be. I like all the new people that they introduced. They don't think they got enough time to shine. How can they when they've got all these other actors and characters to deal with throughout the course of the season? But I'm really happy that they passed the torch. Mm-hmm. Maybe it wasn't a direct passage. Maybe it wasn't like, maybe they stumbled and fell like while they were trying to pass the torch, but they passed it, and I'm happy with that. So that's my overall thoughts. Veronica, we'll start with you. What is something about this season, because we don't have time to go like episode by episode or anything, but what's a particular scene or a plot line or something that about this season that you really enjoyed?
I really enjoyed Worf, and you were talking about Worf and Riker, and when they were palling around on the Borg ship, that was a lot of fun. And I've seen them at Dragon Con together, and I can just like picture the two of them just like not even bothering with what the writer said and just like being their characters and just improving an entire scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when Riker tries to pick up the Batlet.
Yes.
And this is a guy who served on board a Klingon ship for a while, right? So he's not like, but apparently he's gotten a little weaker in his old age, or maybe the Batlet's just gotten heavier. Who knows? But no, I've always liked that camaraderie, and I felt like they never really, during the course of the season, you got very, very few episodes with the two of them really like doing something together. Yeah, and I thought that was a mistake. That never happened. But through the course of the movies and in this, you see they still got that chemistry. Chuck, what about you?
I'm going to go Worf as well, but I'm going to go Worf and Raffi.
Ooh,
I
yeah,
thought
nice
that was a pairing that worked so well. And I actually thought Worf worked better in the early half of the season than he did later on when he teamed up with the TNG crew. As soon as he met up with them, they seemed like they leaned more into the Star Trek Insurrection goofy humor, Worf, more corny humor. Whereas I thought when he paired up with Raffi and sort of took her under his wing, he's like the old samurai. And Raffi's a character I didn't feel like worked particularly well in the first two seasons. Even though Michelle Hurd is a fantastic actress, they just couldn't figure that character out, and they didn't reboot her this year. She's still very much the character she's been, but just pairing her with Worf worked so well. And I would watch a whole show of just those two on adventures together.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate that as soon as Worf teams up with the rest of the Enterprise crew, the Enterprise D crew, like Raffi disappears. Like in the last 2 or 3 episodes, I don't think she does anything. Like, so like it was like that last shot of her, like, as the number one on the bridge of the new Enterprise. I was like, oh, there she is. I forgot she was on this show. Keith, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think two. I think two. Well, I think three of the women really impressed me. Even though she was a little Rambo or a little Ripley, I love Beverly Crusher being so central.
Yeah.
A lot of things
Because
have changed in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
no kidding, like Coley standing over an alien and blasting it a couple more times. That was I've never seen McCoy do something like that. That was a little shocking. But I love that Gates McFadden finally got her due because she's always been one of my favorite characters, and she never got a lot of really good centric shows. Or if you think about it, she's known for a couple of things from the original series. She's known for saying, "If there's nothing wrong with me, there must be something wrong with the universe," which is actually kind of a philosophical line. And then she's known for sex with the candle creature.
That is true.
Yeah. So I love seeing her, and I love seeing her have so much screen time, especially in the first half. Her and Stewart and Frakes. And then the other was 7 and 9. And I've said many times on our show that I always liked 7 and 9, but I still felt and feel that she sucked a lot of the air out of Voyager, because when she came on, so much of that show focused on Jerry Ryan. Nothing personal against her. The whole cat suit and the sexuality thing was always a little bit too much in your face. But I cannot deny she's a good actress. She's a really good actress. And I think for the first time, though, they found the right balance of her. I liked her story. Hers is one of the few stories I liked throughout the Picard seasons, where she was the ranger, couldn't find herself, now kind of found herself. As Chuck was saying, you got to overlook some things. Like, she was like a ranger yesterday, and then she's in Starfleet the next day, basically. And it is what it is. But
it's who you know. We found that out. We find that out through the whole series. It's who you know.
Good point. I thought she did a good job.
She was on the quick track, just like Picard's son.
So I think they finally got it right. And I love Jerry Ryan as a very serious and even action-oriented actor. I think that was great. And then finally, for me, Rafi. I've said many times on these shows that as a Black man in my 50s, I'm very sensitive to portrayals of Black people, perhaps the way some people younger are not. Rafi, the very first time she was introduced, for me personally, and for my wife, who I didn't talk to and who felt the same way, Rafi, I felt, was a little offensive as a Black person, because she was introduced as somebody using drugs, swigging from a bottle, living in a trailer in the desert in the 24th century or 25th century. I didn't like her portrayal. It's a very kind of stereotype portrayal, for all that I love Michelle Hurd. And then she was cursing and all this stuff. She came off as a stereotypical streetwise, angry Black woman. It's a thing. This season, as Chuck was saying, it's still the same Rafi, but they gave her a purpose. She's not lost anymore. Now she's in Starfleet Intelligence. And what's cool is she's still struggling with drugs, but it's not the same as she was last season. She's stronger. I love seeing her fight with Worf. I love seeing them spar together. And there's nothing wrong with a person who's troubled and who has all these temptations and weaknesses. But this season, they made her a stronger character to me on the outside as well. And so I loved Rafi's arc. And now I really like Michelle Hurd in the role much better than I did the first two seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even more of a pity that she disappears in the last two episodes.
Yes.
It's like, yeah. I mean, it's hard to juggle that many characters.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But so hopefully she'll get a chance to shine going forward. But even more so. But Mike, what about you? What's a component of the show that you liked this season?
I loved the chemistry. The chemistry between the characters, the history between the characters. Mm-hmm. And even when you got a new character in like Captain Shaw and such, he fit in. He was the thorn in everyone's side at the beginning of the season. He was by the books. But he fit. And that's the one thing I loved. And I loved, it was a big reunion, and it was great. Everyone coming up, and I loved they didn't make half the crew the bad guys, from the old series, coming all after Picard and stuff. I'm glad everyone was always on Picard's side, and that they were willing to stick with him, to trust him. What was going on. Geordi needed a little convincing, but he got there and everything. And I just, it felt like, when you drink a really good scotch or a really good cup of coffee, it's like, aha, this is something that I remember from when I was younger, and this is what I got from it. You know, the banter between Riker and Picard, awesome. I loved when, you know, Worf was, you know, revealed to be Rafi's handler. That was awesome. You know, especially the way they did it when you saw the banta through the chest. And it was just like, oh, that was just like, that was just frippin' cool as hell. And it was just like, I had so many fist pumps in this series, you know, of the season. And even when they brought the frippin' spaceship back, it was awesome. When you got the D back, it was just frippin' amazing. And that's what I loved about it. It was a feel-good season. You got Data back, you got lore back, and I loved how they combined the two. It was really well done. And there's just so many layers to talk about with this. I can't wait to jump in even further.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have this when I watch things like we've just talked about The Mandalorian this week, and now we're talking about Picard. And with these franchises, as well as many others franchises that are around now, I've got a franchise continuity like alarm that goes off in my head as I'm watching something. And, you know, if something doesn't sort of ring true, my alarm goes off. And there's a lot of times where I'm watching something and the alarm is just going off like crazy and I can't enjoy what I'm watching. So I've been trying really hard, to just disconnect that alarm and just enjoy things for what they are, which is kind of cool on the one hand, because I get to enjoy stories a little bit more. On the other hand, it's like, well, you know, that they just threw all that continuity out the window. Like, for example, I really had a hard time getting past the point where I was like, I can't imagine Beverly like just getting pregnant and leaving, like, and not telling anybody. Like, I just couldn't. I couldn't imagine. That was not a character trait that I thought she had. No. It didn't seem like it was something she would do. But I had to throw that out because, you know what? If you don't buy that, then you don't buy Jack and you don't buy anything else in this plot or this show, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I threw that out, and by throwing that out, I really, really liked Jack. As far as new characters goes, Jack was really interesting. He's played really well by Ed Spielers, who I'd seen in a couple other things, but I think he really shines here. And it's not easy to create a character that I think that like just holds my interest as far as Star Trek goes, that I want to see continue. Lord knows they, you know, this series, Picard as a whole, has had a difficult time doing that with me. There's been as we've talked about, there's some other characters they've introduced that I just couldn't care less about. But I thought they did a really good job with Jack and you know, having that sort of the plot line, even though we've seen it before, the plot line of like, you know, you're not quite done with the Borg, even when you're done with the Borg. That goes for Star Trek as a franchise.
You're never done with the Borg.
Yeah, exactly. You know, even though season 2 ended like we're done with the Borg, and then, you know, all throughout this, it's like, oh man, it really feels like it's going to be the Borg. No, they wouldn't do that. No, it really feels like it's going to be the Borg. No, they wouldn't do that. And Beverly opens the door and sees the cube, and I'm like, yeah, there we are. There we are. But I appreciated that Jack is a new character. I liked a lot of the new characters they introduced. Like I said, I liked the new characters that they introduced on the Titan. I didn't like Shaw as a character. I thought he was a retread, and I thought he was that was a lazy character. Like, you know, he's not by the book. He's just a guy who's a bigot against people who have been Borged before. Like, I'm like, you know, I'm just tired of seeing characters in Star Trek, especially part of Starfleet and the Federation, be bigots. I know that's happened throughout Star Trek's history, but it's just like, and you know, he tells the sad story of him at Wolf 359, which we've heard from other characters before. So it's like, it just seemed like it was a retread. And, you know, when by the time they killed him off, I didn't care. I didn't care about him. You know, he was just in the way of Seven getting the chair. So I was like,
I love
Wow, Mike.
so
Wow.
anyway, but I like Jack, and I'm glad he's here to stay. So let me ask you this, Chuck. We'll start with you. Was there any new characters in this that you appreciated?
I really
Did you
like
say
Captain
Shaw?
Shaw.
I'm sorry.
it. Oh boy.
Yeah.
I did like Captain Shaw.
Okay.
So did I.
thought they set him up really nicely as sort of an antagonist for our heroes in the first half of the season, but not with that sort of stereotypical Star Trek thing where the antagonist captain or admiral or commodore is a moron. You know, he's right a lot of the time when they're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to go to the edge of the Federation space? And he's like, no, because I take orders from actual officers and not from you, you know? And, you know, he was like, well, no, we're not going to fight this big, massive ship. We're going to get out of here because we're an exploratory craft and we're going to go report on what's going on, like all the whole way through. And he's making the right choices. Like, these guys broke the law. I'm going to go turn them in, you know? And he wants to get back on his happy little merry way. And I loved his speech. I loved his Shaw moment, his Robert Shaw moment from Jaws, where he got to, you know, he got to be Clint for a minute and tell the story of the Borg, and it wasn't that surprising when the shark ate him at the end. But you know, I thought that he was really well performed and really well written. You know,
I don't have anything against the actor. I just felt like, and I'm glad he worked for you. I will say that, like, especially at the end, you know, when Tuvok played that little clip of him, his sort of report on Seven's activities and whether she should be promoted or not or whatever, didn't sound like that guy at all. Like, I was just like, this is not, I don't like this. You're just putting this in here because you want to put this in here. You're not building anything out of that. So,
feel good ending.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of wanted that. And, you know, I kind of was just waiting for that time where he was going to finally call her Seven, you know, like, just come on. Like, it's just, it just didn't really work for me. I just felt it was played out. But I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad it worked for you because he is a good actor. Yeah. He is a good actor. Any other new characters? Veronica, any new characters for you that you liked?
There was a couple of bridge crew from the Titan that that I don't think we even ever had names for, but I'd really like to see more of them. Specifically, the alien that had the kind of like the green tinged things on her head. I'd really like to see more of her because she seemed very interesting, and I don't think she had a name, and she had very few lines.
She did have a name. And because I'll listen to the episodes with the audio description, my phone in the other seat while I'm driving at work and things like that. But they always refer to that character by they and them rather than her and she, just as an FYI.
That's
interesting. Cool. So I would like to see them more in the new series, fingers crossed, which they should absolutely do.
I really enjoyed the science officer. I like that actress. I've seen her in other things, and I liked her a lot. And then they killed her off, and I was like, oh man,
dude, same here. I really thought she was cool. Then they like blasted her.
I was like, oh man. Keith, was there any new characters that stood out for you?
For the new characters, I have to say I like both of Geordi's daughters.
Oh, they were great.
I love the dynamic because, and I don't, is it Aaliyah, his daughter, who's the pilot?
Yeah.
Crash LaForge.
That's Sydney.
That's Sydney.
Yeah, she had a really kind of bright, youthful enthusiasm about her, and then his other daughter, who's played by his real life daughter, is a little more serious, and I thought that was very interesting because she who's also an engineer, she was almost acting like his personal attaché or something weird like that. And so I love the dynamic between them. One of them seemed a little more serious and a little more of the peacemaker. The other one was a little more rebellious and enthusiastic. The one, like, you know, I love the scene where Riker kept saying, wait, they call you Crash LaForge. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, you crashed the shuttle. So I thought his daughters are really good.
No, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I also
it's not like he ever crashed anything.
Yeah.
No ships ever crashed when Riker was in charge.
No kidding.
Just ask the D. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. And I love the fact that having daughters gave LeVar Burton a couple of really powerful, dramatic moments. Like you were talking about, he was hesitant. His whole thing was, this is my family. These are my girls. And there's that one scene where he was almost about to lose it and say, I have to go after my girls. And Data of all people had to say, Jordy, we don't have a plan. Calm down. We'll do this. I thought that was really great. The only thing I didn't like was that I felt that the whole thing where he and his daughter were estranged literally made no sense. That felt like a forced father, parent child have to have some kind of weird relationship so they can make up. But I love them as new characters.
Yeah. I must admit, my alarm went off as far as Geordi was going, because I'm like, do I really see Geordi as like just a museum guy? Like, like that's how he's going to spend. But introducing the girls, and especially the way he played his relationship with them and how important they were, I was like, well, this makes total sense why he's not out on a ship and doing other stuff. It's like his girls are everything to him.
Right. And also, he's evidently been rebuilding a galaxy class starship by himself for the last 20 years.
That takes some time.
If only he had to do it by hand, that would have been really cool. If he
Mike,
didn't have robots to help him.
New characters for you, Mike?
Well, like we've mentioned, I did like Shaw. I thought he was a great foil. I thought he was a great foil to both Picard and to Riker, and he called them on their BS multiple times, and I liked that about him. And he wasn't stupid, like in all the old Star Trek movies. Oh, Captain Kirk stealing the Enterprise. Let's send the Excelsior after them. And, the captain there, like being all overstuffed and everything. And then the Excelsior breaks down or something like that. And he's like, what happened? You didn't get that with Shaw. Shaw was, pretty much the whole time was calling, basically calling him on what each thing was. And he was right. He was going, by the books and what by Starfleet rules should have been done. The other character I really liked was Vadic. I thought she was awesome. I liked her. Amanda Plummer was awesome.
Oh, here comes some discussion.
She ate every scene and that she was in.
That is correct.
She is a scene eater, and I love Amanda Plummer from all the way back in So I Married an Axe Murderer. And I also loved her in Pulp Fiction. And I loved her, in so many other roles. As the bad guy in this, she was a true evil bad guy that you never really saw in Star Trek before. You didn't get stuff, where she, you figure at first she's just a bounty hunter out trying to capture Jack and everything. And then there's more to it, that she's working for some mysterious figure who, she has to cut her hand to, get messages. I was like, what? And everything. And the whole thing with the changelings, I think that was a little weak and everything. I was not thrilled with that part of the story.
Right.
That was overdone in DS9, and it's like I wanted to see that done with. I didn't think they needed to bring that back, and it could have equally been as good of a story without it. And I could never see the changelings working with the Borg, so it was just like no. But there was just something about her character. For me, she was a true mustache twirler, and I liked that. She reminded me some ways of someone who's just BS crazy and didn't have, anything to lose. And she threw everything at it. And I love the scenes where, Riker, threw the asteroid at her ship and everything, which was so cool. Frippin' awesome. That was just, and that was frippin' amazing. But also, she had a portal gun, which was totally cool. And it's like, from someone who's loved playing Portal on the computer, that was just so frippin' awesome and everything. So, there was just things I liked about it, but, and then she had the best line when she, got beamed out into space, her last line, effing solids, I just love that.
That was a great line.
And then she shatters into pieces. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced as Vedic as a character. I'm not as fan as you are. I like Amanda Plummer, all right, and I think she had a lot of fun doing this. but her role was just didn't really end up being anything. You could have done this series without her. And the portal gun as well. I mean, you think that's going to be a big thing, but I mean, it's never really, it's used in a couple of episodes and then it's gone. It's not really anything that they need. So, and I think they were looking for a Khan wannabe, and that's what she was, to me. Like, they were looking for someone like that, someone who went over the top, going after them, chewing scenery. And I couldn't understand what she was, even when they explained her character and her reasons. I don't know. It just didn't ring true to me. Unfortunately, she's the only real bad guy we get. I mean, we get the Borg Queen, of course, but I mean, we've seen the Borg Queen several times. It's just a matter of whose voice is it this week. So,
but I love that they used the voice from the First Contact.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice. Alice is too old to get in the suit, but she can do the voice. So yeah, Vadic and the Changelings. Yeah, I mean, yeah, them and the Borg are just two groups that I would not expect to work together, and I don't think they did a good job in explaining why they were.
One of the things that we had talked about, Mike, too, was a little confusing, was this seemed like a subgroup of the Changelings that they had been captured.
Yeah, they mentioned that a few times.
They were a couple times.
So my somewhat, I don't know if it would say frustration, but my definite curiosity is, where's the Great Link? I guess they're not linked with the Great Link, because the Great Link, assuming they're still good, would have probably tried to stop them.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that. So we got that subset. So I really wonder, because, in universe, Odo is still alive and still in the Great Link. And the Great Link had sworn to end hostilities. So I would have, if you're going to use the changelings, I really feel that not having the Great Link as part of this, the bulk of the change, I think that was a huge mistake, because I literally want to know what they're doing now. Because you're going to bring in changes, like, where are the rest of them? What are they doing? What are they saying? How do they feel?
Yeah, then you start opening the door to Deep Space Nine, and it's like, okay, is this a Star Trek Next Generation reunion, or is this a Deep Space Nine reunion, or is it a Voyager reunion? Like, what is this? Like,
all of the above.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, let's throw some sound effects in from the original series too. That'll be cool. I'm like, really? Ships sound like this now? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But when you hear when you hear those sounds, you're like, like, that's so nice. I like hearing that's the way a bridge should sound, All right. So, I was going to ask about the plot, about the big, thing that they're going up against, the big villain plan to once again take over the planet and the Federation and all that.
Oh boy, holes.
Yeah, I will say this in its defense.
There's plot holes big enough that you can fly a spaceship through.
It's like a big. That's what the portal gun was for. The cover all the plot holes. I did like the idea of the Borg trying to infiltrate Starfleet, not directly with like a cube just in their face, but going through in a subversive manner, and especially changing the transporters so that they were putting some code in there, similarly that the code that was left with Picard, and should have been 7-2, but we didn't get to see that didn't play out that way. But I like that idea. I don't think it was played out well, but I like the idea.
Yeah, because they said something that literally made no sense. They literally said that if you were older than a certain age, and they did this because they said
older than 25, basically.
Yeah, they couldn't re-engineer your hippocampus, and that literally makes no sense given what they're doing. If you can do any of that with a transporter, literally rerouting, reconfiguring somebody's brain, the age wouldn't matter. So that's another one of those that you just had to go, okay, because we talked about it on our show, which was, look, they wanted this to be the old people still have a purpose, and they're going to have to kick some butt, and the young people have to go, wow, they're still useful. So they kind of clunkily came up with a way to make the old people the only ones who could really continue to function. So that was a little bit of a hole. And I think Chuck had mentioned in our show, before anybody else could say it, was when you transport, they pretty much just kind of keep like common genetic codes in the buffer. Like it's like if I go through and then Chuck goes through, they're like, oh, well, Keith and Chuck have the same DNA here, so we're not going to copy that part of Chuck's DNA. Every human has that. That's real scary. Although we do that in IT all the time, Mike. We were talking about that. That's what compression and backup technology is.
Of course.
But I wouldn't want anybody doing it with my DNA. So.
just copy mine down as it is, huh? Even if it's the same.
Look, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, ever since Star Trek started, the transporter has just been magic. Like, it's just a reason to save on effects of getting a ship down there and all that kind of stuff. So I whatever explanation they want to give me for transporter stuff, I'm like, it's fine. It's all magic. It's all there's no such thing as a Heisenberg principle. It's like it's not something that can be resolved ever. So, at least it's not like the Prestige. Oh, spoiler for the Prestige. At least it's not like the Prestige where like you transport and it creates another version of you, and then you have to kill the other version of you.
That happened in Spock Must Die.
Yes, it
exactly.
did. It did exactly. Wasn't there a Voyager? No, the Voyager one they combined, right? In the episode they combined two people. Yeah.
Yes.
Tuvix. We're still debating that one.
Yep.
Not today, though.
No.
Yeah.
So not only were the changelings in a certain sect of changelings,
Right.
and a certain sect of Borg were working together, but they apparently had hired a bounty hunter to locate Picard's son, and also, on the other hand, and at the same time, to actually get his body retrieved, his actual body from Daystrom Institute.
That could be a whole episode in itself. What was found in the Daystrom Institute?
Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of Easter eggs in there. Sure.
Yeah.
That's all fan service there.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything you look at is from Moriarty to everything.
You even had Kirk's body in there. It was like, what?
I would like to formally request that we quit having Tribble appearances, though. That's it's gotten a little, now you had a killer Tribble. It's getting a little.
Well, that's the next.
Who knew they
Borg,
had so many mouths?
The next Borg union is going to be with the Tribbles. So that's how they're going to infiltrate. We're going to have Borg Tribbles.
We have one.
I do have a Borg Tribble around here somewhere.
Yes.
I bought it at a convention.
Awesome. You're ahead of the game.
I am so not surprised.
I can't wait till they appear on Strange New Worlds. What is there anything else about the sort of the plot to take over the Federation that you either liked or didn't like? I mean, what about the taking over of all the Starfleet ships, getting them all to one place?
Yeah, I thought that getting all the ships in one place was pretty dumb. Like, you wouldn't recall the entire Starfleet to have a parade. You know, right. I mean, you talking about there's no ships that are on a long range mission. There's no ships guarding the border. There's no ships delivering colonists somewhere. It just makes zero sense. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to assume when they say all ships, even though they say it like 12 times in the series, I just mean they mean a lot of ships. Yeah. And all the ships that were assigned. It was a lot of ships, but it's goofy. And Starfleet doesn't really have military parades. You know, that's like a Soviet Union thing. You know what I mean? You don't parade the Starfleet around for the anniversary. Yeah, I thought that was dumb, and also Starfleet surely would know better than to network all their ships together to be all controlled, because of course this episode that's going to be hijacked by the bad guys.
Right. That literally
they even talked about it in season 2, you know, when the Borg were able to take over the ships. Mm-hmm. In episode 1, it was just like it was just like.
But season 2 didn't happen, so.
Right.
Apparently not.
Everything that happened to season 2 to the Borg and to Q is irrelevant.
Yes.
I mean, really, you can watch season 1 and 3 and not miss a thing.
Nope.
Like there's
Except
nothing.
You'd be wondering where Ramirez is, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's
But I mean, one thing I thought that was really clever was tying in the whole genetic thing that the Borg changed about Picard from back in the Ironic Syndrome on and All Good Things to the fact that he could still hear the Borg Collective in First Contact, which I said on our show that everyone should have been more concerned about than they were. But something fundamental about him had been changed that Starfleet didn't pick up on, and that he passed it on to his kid. I thought they tied that in nicely with the theme this season, which seemed to be about legacy and what you're passing on good and bad to the next generation. So I thought they did a pretty smart and clever way of tying that together and making that feel like it's always been a part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what Chuck said earlier too was my thing. I literally cannot get behind fleet formation. There's no way that an organization who, as we all are talking about, have been taken over by the Borg, who already have prefix codes, would create a device where you could link all these ships together. And it looks like the captains then don't have a choice of not linking with it. That's insane. But then they undercut it by giving it a ridiculous weakness because it was basically Bluetooth. It was line of sight. And if you cloak, you drop
think
out.
of that.
So I was like, but that makes no sense because when you cloak, you can still hear radio signals and subspace signals. So that communication signal should have still. So that was just kind of goofy. Like, what?
It
line
was.
of sight.
It was just like what? No.
It's also unneeded because you're assimilating the crews. You don't have to also have network ships. Like it's why they're like doubling down on the fact that Starfleet's being controlled. And who's controlling the network ship? Are they assimilated, or surely Starbase One should be able to like deactivate all the ships, make them go to a safe distance. Like someone should be running this thing.
I guess all the people trying to deactivate with the old people who kept getting shot by the young people. Maybe that's what was going on.
I guess.
Maybe they were the changelings, the people who were.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Shelby.
Yeah.
I guess the. Okay.
Also, R.I.P. Roe, which was awesome to see. Michelle Forbes was just awesome.
I'm not a big fan of introducing past players just to have them killed.
Yeah.
This is not a good show for you then.
No, definitely not, Mikey.
No, I know. I'm not a big. It's not just this show. It happens a lot. So yeah, I worried about Ro. The minute I saw her, I'm like, oh man. It's nice that she's here, but I don't see this going anywhere well.
I was very depressed by that because Michelle Forbes, I absolutely adore her. As Roland, I adore her. I love her introductory episode. I love every episode she's ever in, except for the one when they turn into kids. And
I love that one.
Yeah, rascals. I hate that they killed her off. And then, like we said, it's so funny, Mike. We were talking because we were all hoping against hope. There was kind of like, and online people are like, hey, maybe Shelby's not dead. And everybody's like, dude, she had 2 glowing holes in her the last time we saw her.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, not only
Shelby
dead, but that ship is gone, right? Because
that was the Enterprise E.
That was the Enterprise F, right?
F.
Yeah.
And that.
Oh, that's right. Worf destroyed E. Sorry,
that was not his fault.
That was funny.
I love the Enterprise so much. And it's the flagship of the fleet for me, and it should be treated with respect, both on screen and off screen. And just to have it thrown out there to be destroyed, and we don't even see it to be destroyed. When we see it, it should be a big thing. Like, this is the new Enterprise. Like, oh my God, you should feel something, right? And then therefore, when it's destroyed, you should feel something as well. But we're too busy like nostalgically like fawning over D to really give F any credit, and it doesn't matter anyway because it doesn't make any everything that they do here is just because they need to get from point A to point B, and regardless of how illogical it is for the characters to do it, like there's no reason for the Titan ship to look like a Constitution class. No reason. The Titan ships look pretty good. Their design looks pretty good on their own.
Yeah.
But the only reason is because later it's going to become an Enterprise G. It's like, okay, all right. And all of that stuff too. There was no reason for them to for Riker and Picard to get on to commandeer a Federation ship. It's like, we need a ship. We need to get there. We need a ship. I'm like, so they stole the Starfleet ship or whatever. They commandeered stuff. You don't need to do that. I thought there was some plot, but it never turned out. So anyway, I'm not gonna gripe anymore because
I said on our show it would be like a Navy admiral who's retired boarding an aircraft carrier and saying, set a course for Japan, and expecting them to go. Like, he would be institutionalized.
Yeah. All right. So I'm not going to gripe anymore because I like you guys. I love the moments where the cast is together. That's the highlight of this series. And anybody who loved or liked even a little bit the Next Generation needs to watch this because they'll get something out of it, because seeing these actors play these parts, and this will probably be the last time we see them all together. Now, I expect there's be times where we see them play these parts again at some various points going forward, but this is going to be the last time they're all at the table in the ready room, whatever, together, right?
Yeah.
And
I love that they played poker in Guinan's bar at the end.
Yeah.
That was just awesome.
Yeah, because we've never seen a show end with them playing poker before.
Dude, I thought it was a great send-off. I thought it was a fantastic.
Well, it was a great send-off, and all good things. That's the way all good things ended. It was a great send-off. Then they didn't need to do it again. All right, I said I was stop growing. So, anyway,
wow, Mike, it's almost like you didn't like it.
There was a lot that I didn't like, but I like the idea, the potential for the future. You know, we've all heard the rumors about this Star Trek Legacy series that may be coming, with 7 of 9 being the captain of the Enterprise, which is an amazing historical event as far as on screen and off. It's the first time an LGBT character has been the captain of an Enterprise. It's a big deal. The fact that it's 7, who's a character that we all like, makes a lot of sense. You know, obviously, she's got some of the crew from the Titan with her. She's got Jack with her. How much are you guys looking forward to the future? If this is the future, are you guys on board? I know.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to the future
what
they got going on with Star Trek anyway, because they've got some cool things coming up. But I would love to get this Star Trek Legacy. The thing that bugs me about it is just the sloppy planning aspect. Where like if this was a show on Disney Plus, you could expect the Star Trek Legacy show to be on in 6 months' time. You know what I mean? There'd be a plan. They'd be shooting already. They wouldn't just tease a show and they'd be like, let's hope we make it someday. You know, like, whereas that's the indication here is that there's no current plans for this show to be on the air. They'd like to. There's a lot of people who'd like to and who've talked about it, but there's no green light. So it's getting everyone riled up in the hopes that everyone will stay riled up and they'll be able to convince Paramount to let them do it.
Same thing that they did with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, but the downside of that, I think, is that when something like Starfleet Academy comes along, there will be people who hold it against that show that it's not Star Trek Legacy, because that's what they've got in their mind, that's what's next and that's what we want, and then boo whatever this is because it's something different. And I mean, and frankly, if 5 years ago, if you'd have said, hey, we should have a show with all the next gen's casts on the new Enterprise, I mean, all their kids get together and they're all the crew of the new Enterprise, and that's the dumbest thing anyone's ever said. No, maybe LaForge and Picard and Crusher's kid can be in love. Like, that is you are a moron. Go write a fanfic.
It's going to be captained by an ex-Borg.
7 of 9 will be the captain. Like, we'll just get Molly O'Brien and Alexander Roshenko and Kestra Riker, and we'll just have Next Generation Junior.
Exactly.
And I'm saying that although I like all these characters and I like the ship and I think the actors are very charming, but I mean, there are people who think that this is like the only thing that can be Star Trek now, and I disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to see the legacy, but as Charles is saying, every day when I'm online, I see a tweet from Terry Matalas. I see a tweet from Alex Kurtzman. I see tweets from Jerry Ryan, and they're all saying, "We hear you, we love you, thank you for saying this. Let's hope the powers that be are listening." Alex Kurtzman goes, "It's definitely something we're thinking about, but that doesn't tell us anything." Because, like as you were just saying, Charles, first off, there's budget. I mean, do they just have the money?
Yeah,
you know.
And right now, when streaming services are pulling back, and they've already got a new Star Trek show on the way, a current Star Trek series, and then a couple of animated shows. Are they going to invest in a third one? Is that financially viable? There's people whose job it is to make that determination whether they like Star Trek or not.
Right.
Exactly.
And a movie. Yeah, a Michelle Forbes movie. Not Michelle Forbes, but Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh. Yeah.
Well, but they said like the Michelle Yeoh movie is going to be the first part of what they're calling phase 2 of Star Trek, and so. You know, so we don't even know what that means.
Right.
Interesting.
So, I don't know if I'm not convinced they know what it means.
No. So it'll be very interesting to see. But I would love to see a Star Trek Legacy, and I would love to see them go forward with the cast. But the earliest you probably will see it is 2025, 2026.
Right.
Yeah. And, know, and will people lose interest in it by that point, too?
No, I won't.
So.
Why was
Because it has the word Trek next to it, right?
That's right.
I hadn't researched, but why was Discovery canceled? Is it money, or did they just think they ran out of story?
No, I think that, I mean, by the time you get to season 5, 6 of a streaming show, are they bringing in new subscribers anymore? And most shows aren't. That's why streaming shows don't tend to last as long, because when it's new, it's bringing in new subscribers. And then after a while, the people who are subscribed for Star Trek Discovery are also going to watch Strange New Worlds. They're also going to watch Starfleet Academy. So you want to get a new show out there and stop investing money in this other show. That's what I think. But that's me, playing armchair quarterback,
Okay.
But I mean, Discovery's been very successful for them, though. They've got a spinoff in the works, actually 2 spinoffs. One's on the air now, Strange New Worlds. You've got Starfleet Academy, looks like it's going to be a Discovery spinoff, and a spinoff movie coming to Paramount Plus. So I think they're pleased with what it's done, but it's sort of reached that point in its life. Thankfully, it's not Netflix, or you'd have got 2 seasons of it instead of 5.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm still stuck in the TNG-DS9 Voyager mode where they had 7 seasons. But as you say, Chuck, that was on broadcast television and UPN and so forth. So it's a little different.
Right.
It's different. It's a different world now, literally.
Yeah.
And you've got to start thinking differently. And we're lucky to get, like you said, 5 seasons of a Trek show right now. So I think
5 seasons on streaming is a good run.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. Very
Absolutely.
much so.
I mean, 5 seasons, even on network TV now these days.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah.
So,
or then they could be like the Arrowverse and keep going and overstaying their welcome way too long.
Right.
So
it's true. A lot of shows do. A lot of shows do. Well, cool. Well, Sorry, I didn't mean to rain on anybody's parade.
Not at all. That's cool. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
We always need one of us to do that. Because, one tonight.
There was a lot of good things. I just wish, I love the Next Generation crew so much. I just wish they deserve better. I'd say they deserve better. But I do look forward to things in the future. So, and in the future when we talk about it too, we got Strange New Worlds coming up in June, and I'm sure after that run of that series, you guys are going to join us and we can talk all about that. So that should be fun as well.
We'd love to.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, cool. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to close out the show. Unless, of course, you're watching this on YouTube, and then you're just going to hear us hanging out for a little bit more.
Exactly. So you 2 people, this is what you get and everything. It's interesting because you had Q at the end of it with, with Jack. What do you think, with Legacy? Do you want them to go the whole Q route and go, that he's haunted by Q the whole season? Or do you want to see fresh stories, or do you want to see a mix and mix?
Yeah, I think there's got to be a balance. I mean, the 90s Star Trek series, you've got 21 seasons of TV, a phenomenal number of actors and characters and situations and planets. It's just such a rich world to pull from, and it makes a lot of sense to continue it on, I think. But you got to have new stories, man. You can't just do, what if so-and-so came back? What if so-and-so came back? It was so-and-so's kid is the start. You know what I mean? Like you've got to, that's what they did when they were making their shows. They came up with new stories.
Right, of course. And that's one of the things that I was worried about when, it's like when they announced legacy shows like Legacy and we're just gonna bring back old villains with new faces and stuff like that. And we got that even with Discovery, and we got that a little bit with Strange New Worlds, but not as much. And we got to meet Harry Mudd before he met Captain Kirk, type thing. And don't get me wrong, I loved Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd. I want to see more Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd.
I couldn't stand. We got all these different opinions on that,
which is awesome.
It's funny you guys say that, Mike, because as you and Charles are saying, this is the point. It's sometimes they almost forget the original series, of course, by its nature, was the pioneer. But somebody has to take chances again and create new things. You can't always have Tribbles. You can't always have Klingons. You can't always bring back, the Organians or whatever they've done. I personally have a huge problem with Strange New Worlds bringing the Gorn in because they just wanted to have the Gorn. And I have a huge, and I can't tell you how big a problem I have with Strange New Worlds bringing in a descendant of Khan long before Kirk found Khan and Kirk and his brother on the show. So I hate that. So like you guys are saying, like you and Charles are saying, though, I want to do new stuff. One of the things I did like about the series Enterprise, which some people don't like and I tend to love, was they weren't always successful, but I give them credit because they were at least sometimes trying something new. I find it ironic that the most popular season of Enterprise is the 4th season when Manny Koto took over, which is nothing but a callback season, basically. And even though the other seasons may not have been as slickly produced, I like them better because they tried new things. And so I agree with you. I like to see something new. I like to see new characters, new regions of space. There's so many things that we haven't looked at. We haven't explored the Beta Quadrant where the Romulans are. We haven't really explored that one. There's so much other new things to bring in. So you're right. I don't want to keep seeing Tribbles and Borg and Khan descendants. And although I guess we'll always have a Noonien song, not a Noonien, a Dr. Song. I guess we can't get away from that.
Well, and that's why, I mean, what you're talking about is why you can't let what trends on Twitter determine the storytelling.
Yeah,
exactly.
The attack Tribble will always trend on Twitter more than something like, they on Discovery last season, they did Species 10C, which was a great storyline, one of the biggest sci-fi stories Star Trek's ever done of these incredibly interesting aliens, but that doesn't trend because it wasn't an old Star Trek. You know what I mean? Whereas you show James T. Kirk's name on the screen and you're trending on Twitter all of a sudden, I mean, I was watching an interview with Ira Stephen Bear just recently where he was talking about in the episode Sarek, and they wanted during the mind meld, they wanted Picard to yell Spock, and Gene wouldn't let them say Spock, or Rick wouldn't let them say Spock because we want to limit references to the old show. This is the new show.
Right.
And
awesome.
I mean, Michael Kuda was talking about when he was first designing the graphics on the Enterprise bridge. Gene Roddenberry didn't want them to look like the graphics from the original series. This is the new show. I think both of those are extreme. I think we can find a middle ground and use the history, but also come up with new stories. But I mean, as long as they let people on Twitter determine what the storyline is, it's always going to be guess who's back.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
I mean, that's not just Twitter. That's just to get the ratings, I mean, it's just, they know, because people, it's a risk. To do something new.
Right.
Well, look at
but
what
as
happened
Kirk said,
look what
risk
happened
is
with
our
Chris
business, right?
But look what happened with Chris Chibnall in Doctor Who. His first season, he wanted all new villains. He wanted, and he got blasted for it.
No, he got blasted because they were all crap.
Well,
if he had created new villains that were cool, then everybody would be happy.
Yeah.
But he created villains. He created stories that were awful and boring.
You didn't like the villain that had teeth in his face?
Tim Shaw?
Yeah.
No.
Come on, Mikey. That's classic.
Just another Shaw I don't like.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. But I liked in the Next Generation. They created new bad guys and new villains, and they brought Q. They had the Ferengi, and it was neat to see Kardashian. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they built them
exactly, and they've all become classics and everything, and that's what you wanted. So, which is pretty awesome.
It's been I mean, I don't mean to sound like one of those purists of Star Trek that's like the original series and they all should be like it or whatever. But one of the things I do miss is that even, I thought we were going to get with Strange New Worlds, and we do a little bit, but I really like the idea of the original series bringing in, and Next Generation did this too, bringing in concepts either from a science fiction standpoint that were interesting or an actual science standpoint that were interesting, and introducing them to mass audiences through some kind of unique story. We don't see that enough. There's no show on the planet that I think does that, and it should be Star Trek, and I would like to see that happen more.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think sometimes to your guys' point, there's kind of who they're looking at for their audience. And I think sometimes they feel that the audience doesn't want the science, they want the glitz and the adventure, the excitement. And I think that's what happens sometimes. You're right. 'Cause I remember in the original series, they would talk about stuff like the episode, what is it? Tomorrow is Yesterday. It's when they go back in time and they get slingshot to the Earth, and that's when they encounter Captain Christopher, the Air Force pilot, and they were talked about there was a dark star, and that concept at the time now it's like, well, was that a black hole or was that a white dwarf or something like that? But they were trying to throw some science in there, and I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, you're right. You don't get a lot of that, and I personally don't count the spore drive as science. I'm sorry. I just don't. I can't get with the ESO Network. I just can't.
That's funny. Well, YouTube folks, this is what you get when you ask questions, and it goes all different directions that we never expect. And that's what I love about doing this kind of stuff. Thank you for sticking with us and everything. Yes. I think it's time to close up the show. So let's go wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Keith, thank you so much, my friend.
Enjoyed it, and I'm so happy to like a season of Picard finally.
Hey, there we go. Anything you want to shout out about or promote?
This is not Star Trek related at all, but I have gotten back into a series on Netflix called The Dragon Prince. It is from the people who did the original Avatar: The Last Airbender. Watch it. It is magical. It is phenomenal. Watch it. It's like a little bit more mature version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I have been enjoying every single episode. So if you got time amongst all the 10,000 other shows on streaming, check it out.
Awesome. And Chuck and Veronica, thank you guys so much.
No, thank you for having us.
Always.
What do you guys have to promote?
Felt nerdy, as always. And
always.
I mean, for the first time since before the pandemic, we're getting back into doing conventions. Post-pandemic, We've just been sticking to Dragon Con, but this year we're doing Frolicon, Metrotham, FrankenCon, and Dragon Con. So we're getting back out into the convention scene a little bit finally. So that should be fun. So if you like nerdy puppet shows, look at feltnerdy.com, which will redirect you to our Facebook page, and check out what we're doing, because we're going to be making some appearances. And also listen to Earth Station Trek. Join us on Thursdays live at 8 p.m. Eastern, and you can chat with us about Star Trek.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Strange New Worlds starts up in June. Is there anything between now and then that you guys are focused on covering between now and then?
We're going to be doing a big show. Well, I say this Thursday, but I don't know what day this is coming out. Talking about the promos and what's coming up on Star Trek, essentially, with the Section 31 and Starfleet Academy and things like that. There's a lot going on that we haven't had time to talk about because we've been talking about. And then we've got some fun shows coming up. We're going to be talking about sort of comparing Star Trek with relevant episodes of other science fiction shows and things like that. So we're going to be playing around with the format a little bit and having some fun in our off season before the new Star Trek show starts, and we're all Strange New Worlds for a while.
Right. So of course that would bring in your Babylon 5s, your The Expanses, and things like that.
Could be Lost in Space, could be Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah,
who
but
knows?
There's some Gene Roddenberry projects, like, was it Genesis 2 or Earth 2?
Mm-hmm.
Sequester tapes, things like that we're looking at even.
Nice.
That is awesome. And Mr. Mike, we've made it to another episode, sir.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure, even when I'm being crabby.
That's okay. It's past your bedtime. I understand. Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
One thing I'm not crabby about is a project that's on Kickstarter, and it's almost over. So when people listen to this, if they listen to it in the first few days it comes out, you can still join in. Stephan Franck, who is an animator, he does artist. He's an artist out in Hollywood. Does storyboards and all that kind of stuff. He did a series called Silver about a vampire that was really, really cool. But he's got a new series now. It's a neo-noir graphic novel set in Los Angeles, around in the country club music kind of thing. But the first volume's already been out. It's called Palomino. And right now there's a Kickstarter for volumes 2 and 3. Check those out if you're into neo-noir, if you're into great comics, if you're into art, if you're into LA's country music club scene, if you're into any of that stuff, check it out, because it's a cool project. And it looks like he's made his goal, so it is going to happen. So if you want to get these books right away, you have to sign up before the Kickstarter ends.
That is awesome. That is really, really awesome. I love when people can support, new projects like that. And Kickstarter is such a great spot for it, folks. It is pretty darn awesome when you can get that kind of stuff. We got actually a piece of mail that I'm going to read real quick as my shout out. We actually got some feedback to the Quantum Leap episode we did last week. And we actually had a ton of fun with the 3 mics on it. And it was...
Not me. I wasn't one of the mics.
Nope, you were not. Sadly enough, it would have been 4
I was
mics.
a mic that was dropped.
The mic that was there were great, but if Mike Gordon joined us, the world would have just exploded right there on the spot. 4 mics in one place. Exactly. Email from Kelly. Kelly wrote, "Hi, I just listened to your podcast episode about Quantum Leap. I'm also a big fan of Quantum Leap, and I love hearing your thoughts about it. I especially like the conversation about your favorite episodes because I had a lot of the same favorites. Judgment Day, Ben Interrupted, Leap, Die, Repeat, and SOS were my personal favorites. I love the time loop aspect of Leap, Die, Repeat, and Addison's scream when Ben dies the first time is also a moment that stands out for me. You could really feel her pain so much that it was almost hard to watch." Agree completely with that. Then she went on and said, "I just had one correction regarding Ian's pronouns. They do use pronouns labeling for Ian's character. It's never especially stated Ian's pronouns are they or them, but the other characters do use they, them pronouns to refer to Ian. Most recently, in the final episode, when Ben says, 'I saw future Ian, and they gave me this code.' Also, in that episode, Janice says to Ian, 'If your 2018 self could see you now, they'd be pretty proud of who they've become.' I don't have quotes for all of them, but Addison and Jen have used them, they pronouns also for Ian quite a few times throughout the season, started with the pilot episode. I just wanted to point that out because I like the way the show is using Ian's pronouns in casual conversation without being too in your face about it." Very well said, Kelly. That is an awesome, awesome email. And we had, part of the discussion was about Ian and how they were represented on the show. And it was quite awesome because Ian, for those who don't know, is played by an actor who you've seen in Sandman playing Desire and other characters. So it's pretty awesome when they are represented properly across that way. And, now that we don't have Darren on the show anymore, we're still going to continue with our LGBT and queer look at society, and thank you for calling us out on that and calling it out for us to pay attention to. We really do appreciate that kind of stuff. And please, folks, if you have any kind of comments, any kind of thoughts on past episodes that we've talked about, and it doesn't even have to be on that topic, it could be about Mike Gordon being grumpy about Picard tonight or anything, please write us feedback at ourstation1.com. We definitely would love to hear from you. And, it's the best way we get to communicate with you guys and such. It's an awesome way to do it. And, it's a ton of fun to be able to build a community. And we've been doing that over 13 years now, folks. So wow. It's pretty darn awesome that we've got to do this. And, with episode 700 coming up right around the corner, it's actually pretty cool that we're going to be doing a look at Geekdom in 2023, and we're going to be doing it as a live episode. So you guys could definitely join in and talk to us about anything. And it's going to be a ton of fun. So with that being said, thanks as always for listening to the Our Station One podcast. Also, remember, we couldn't do this here without you. If you want to support the podcast, please check out our Tee-Public store and get some cool ESO Network swag, including, of course, the Wonder Warrior t-shirt. And remember, every t-shirt that we sell with Wonder Warrior on it goes to charity, any profits we get from it. So it's all going to a really, really good cause. Also, remember, if you want to listen to our show, please show before the rest of the world. Why not join in with the ESO Network Patreon? For as little as $1 a month, you can support us here at the Earth Station One podcast. Check out the ESO Network on Patreon at patreon.com/ESO Network. We also would love to hear from you. As I said before, feedback at earthstation1.com is the best way to get in touch with us. Remember, you can also find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found. And now, of course, Earth Station One could be found in our video format up on YouTube. So please subscribe and tell all your friends about us. Remember, like and subscribe, and hit the bell up the top. You know why? Because that gives you announcements when we come to you now twice a week, not just once, twice a week. So we're doing this even more for you guys now, even more Earth Station One than before. This is just crazy. This is crazy talk, I tell you. So on behalf of myself, of course, Mike Faber, Mr. Mike Gordon, Keith, and of course, Veronica and Chuck from Earth Station Trek. And sorry, Alan couldn't be here tonight. He's having too much fun in Cleveland, you know? So
Indeed.
Thank you guys for listening, everyone. We will see you all here next time on the Earth Station One podcast. Peace, and we are done. Ciao, everyone. Bye. All right. Beam us up. Boom.